Please, someone help me!
A bus stop, pouring rain. A 6-year-old girl, alone, one shoe missing, shivering. People walked by, umbrellas up, eyes down. No one stopped.
Hey, look at me. You're okay.
A young black man knelt down in front of her.
What's your name, little one?
Chloe.
Chloe, I'm Mitch. I'm not going anywhere.
She grabbed his sleeve with both hands. He bought her a hot chocolate with his last $4.50. His phone rang.
Mr. Brooks, your interview is in 11 minutes. If you don't show up, we'll give your slot to someone else.
He looked at Chloe. She looked at him as if he were the only person left in the world. He'd waited 8 months for this interview. Giving it up. Was that the best or worst decision he'd ever made? 6 hours earlier, a one-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a building where the elevator hadn't worked since last winter. Peeling paint, a folding table that doubled as a desk and a dining table. On the wall, a framed photo of an older woman with kind eyes, and next to it, a handwritten note in faded ink. Be the man the world doesn't expect you to be. His grandmother, Ruth Brooks. Gone 3 years now, but that note stayed. Mitch stood in the bathroom, looking at himself in the mirror. Clean shave. His one good shirt, white, slightly wrinkled. He filled a pot with boiling water, pressed a towel flat on the table, and ironed the shirt by hand. Slowly. Carefully. Like it mattered. Because it did. He opened his laptop, cracked screen held together with electrical tape, and scrolled through his portfolio one more time. Logos, branding concepts, layout designs. Everything self-taught. YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m. Library books borrowed and borrowed again. No degree, no connections. Just the work. All right, he said to the mirror. Tell me about your design philosophy. He straightened his collar. I believe great design isn't about decoration. It's about communication. It's about making people feel something before they even read a word. He nodded at himself. Not bad. A knock at the door. Mitchell. Mr. Ellsworth, landlord. Mitch knew that knock the way you know a bill collector's ring, by the weight of it. He opened the door. Mr. Ellsworth. 22 days, Mitchell. I know. Friday, that's it. I can't keep Friday. I hear you. Mr. Ellsworth looked at the shirt, the shave, the shoes lined up by the door. His face softened. Just barely. You got something today? Interview. Design firm downtown. A pause. Good luck, son. Thank you, sir. The door closed. Mitch stood there for a second. Then he grabbed his portfolio folder, slid his phone into his pocket, and headed for the stairs. He stopped on the 2nd floor. Apartment 2C. Knocked twice. The door opened slowly. Gwen Moore, 74, retired nurse, moved like every step cost her something. But her eyes were sharp. Always sharp. Morning, Miss Gwen. Morning, baby. You look handsome. I brought you that. He handed her a plate covered in foil, rice and beans from last night. Boy, you barely feed yourself. I feed myself fine. You eating enough? Don't change the subject. She looked him up and down. That the interview today? Yes, ma'am. Whitmore Creative, inside Monarch Tower. Monarch Tower? Fancy. Fancy enough. She grabbed his hand, held it for a second. You're gonna knock 'em dead, Mitchell. Your grandma would be so proud. He smiled. The real kind. The kind that starts behind the eyes. From your lips, Miss Gwen. Go, before you make me cry and mess up my morning. He laughed, kissed her on the forehead, and took the stairs down. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Shuttered storefronts, a check-cashing spot with a line already forming, the smell of wet concrete and old grease from the bodega on the corner. He passed the basketball court. 3 kids already out there, shooting in the drizzle. Yo, Mitch, why you so clean? Job interview, little man. You need a haircut, though. Mind your business. They all laughed. He kept walking. On the bus, he sat by the window and opened his portfolio on his phone. A woman in the next seat leaned over. Not nosy, just curious. Did you make those? Yes, ma'am. Those are really good. Thank you. I hope they think so too. She smiled and went back to her book. Mitch looked out the window. The buildings were changing. Brick turning to glass, graffiti turning to ad panels, corner stores turning to coffee shops with $8 lattes. Monarch Tower appeared in the distance. 42 floors of steel and glass, catching the gray sky like a blade. Somewhere inside that building was a desk with his name on it. Or at least, a chair across from someone who might give him a chance. 8 months. 43 applications. 1 callback. This was it. He took a breath, straightened his collar one more time, and got off at the next stop. He had no idea he'd never make it through that door. And he had no idea that what stopped him would end up opening a door he didn't even know existed. He stayed. The rain got heavier. Chloe sat on the bench, clutching her hot chocolate with both hands. Her dress, white with little yellow flowers, now soaked and brown with dirt, clung to her like a second skin. 1 foot bare, tucked under her leg, the other shoe barely holding together, sole peeling at the toe. Mitch sat on the far end of the bench, not too close, hands on his knees, visible. He understood what this looked like. A grown man, a stranger, sitting next to someone's child. So he gave her space. Chloe, can you tell me what happened? She stared into the cup. My nanny was supposed to pick me up from school. She didn't come. I waited and waited. Then the teachers left. They locked the gate. I yelled, but nobody came back. How long did you wait? A long time. My backpack was too heavy, so I left it by the gate. I tried to walk home, but everything looks different in the rain. I kept turning and turning, but I couldn't find my street. She paused. Her chin trembled. I asked a lady for help. She looked at me and walked away. Then I asked a man. He said he was busy. Then I asked another lady, and she said she didn't have time. 3 people. A 6-year-old, alone in the rain, asked 3 strangers for help. 3 adults looked at a lost child and kept walking. So I just sat down, and I didn't know what else to do. So I cried. Mitch didn't say anything for a second. He just let that sit. Then, quietly, you're not alone anymore. That part's over. Are you hungry, besides the hot chocolate? She nodded, small, almost ashamed, like admitting hunger meant admitting something worse. He went back to the bodega on the corner. The cashier, older Dominican man, tired eyes, looked at Mitch, looked through the window at the girl on the bench, and slid a granola bar across the counter. On the house, brother. Mitch, thank you, man. Seriously. Chloe ate it in 4 bites, didn't even chew the last one properly. Then she looked up at him with eyes that had aged 5 years in one afternoon. Are you going to leave too? That landed, hard, like a stone dropped from a rooftop. No, I told you, I'm not going anywhere. Across the street, the woman in the sedan was still parked. Donna Price, window cracked, phone raised. She'd been sitting there the whole time, not once stepping out to ask the child if she was okay. Not once calling 911. Not once offering a towel, a ride, a word. Just watching. Just recording. Just in case. Mitch saw her. He didn't react. He kept his hands still, his voice steady, every word to Chloe spoken clearly. Not just for Chloe, for the lens that might be pointed at him. Because that's the tax. The invisible tax a black man pays when he does something good in public. You prove your innocence while you prove your kindness. And you hope people remember the right part. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a frayed shoelace, a spare from a pair of shoes he'd thrown out last month, took a paperclip from his portfolio folder, twisted the lace into a loop, threaded the clip through, bent it into a small, clumsy flower. A trick his grandmother taught him when he was Chloe's age, on a rainy afternoon just like this one. Here, put out your hand. He slid it onto her wrist. She held her arm up, turned it in the gray light. It's magic, she whispered. Nah, just a shoelace, but you make it look magic. She laughed. Quiet, wet, real. The first one in hours. His phone hit 2%. He dialed 911. Hold music. Battery dropping. All right, Chloe, there's a police station about 20 minutes from here. Can you walk? My foot really hurts. He crouched down, back to her. Hop on. She climbed up, arms around his neck, light as air. He carried her through the rain, past the bodega, past the shuttered storefronts, past Donna Price, who finally rolled her window up and drove away. No help, no word, nothing. Chloe talked the whole way, about her dog Biscuit, about how yellow is the best color because it looks like sunshine even when it's raining, about how she wants to be a teacher when she grows up, so no kid ever gets left alone at the gate. At the precinct, an officer took Chloe's information. He glanced at Mitch. Quick scan, up and down. And you are?
The person who found her, bus shelter on Grand Avenue. She was alone.
The officer nodded, wrote it down. Mitch turned to leave. A small hand grabbed his.
Mitch?
Yeah?
You're the nicest person I ever met.
He squeezed her hand, smiled, walked out. His phone was dead. His interview was gone. His last $4.50, gone. The sky was still gray. He walked home. Next morning, Mitch plugged his phone into the charger at the coffee shop where he worked. Barista, $11.50 an hour. The kind of job that keeps you alive, but never lets you live. 3 missed calls, 1 voicemail. He pressed play. Hi, Mr. Brooks. This is Hannah Caldwell from Whitmore Creative. Unfortunately, since you didn't make your scheduled interview, the position has been filled. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. He played it once, set the phone down, stared at the counter for a long time. Then he tied his apron back on and started making lattes. He didn't tell Gwen. Didn't tell the guys at the court. Didn't tell anyone. He just swallowed it, the way he'd learned to swallow everything, quietly. Standing up, 2 days passed, 2 shifts, 2 nights staring at the ceiling. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Brooks, my name is Hannah Caldwell. I'm the HR director at Monarch Holdings. Same voice, same woman. But something was different this time. Warmer, almost careful. I think you already called me, ma'am. I got the voicemail. This is a different call, Mr. Brooks. I'm not calling from Whitmore Creative. I'm calling from the parent company, Monarch Holdings. Pause. Mrs. Catherine Wilson would like to meet with you. Who? Catherine Wilson? She's the CEO of Monarch Holdings, and she's Chloe's mother. Silence. A long one. The coffee machine hissed behind him. Chloe? The little girl from... Yes, she's been looking for you since that afternoon. She'd like to thank you personally. Would you be available to come to the office tomorrow? Mitch leaned against the back wall of the coffee shop. His hand was shaking. Not from fear, from something he didn't have a name for yet. Yeah, I'll be there. The next morning, he stood in front of Monarch Tower, 42 floors of glass and steel. The same building he was supposed to enter 3 days ago for an interview. The same lobby he never reached. Except now, instead of begging for a chance at a junior design position on the 6th floor, he was being invited to the 42nd. He walked in. Marble floors, so polished he could see his reflection. Glass elevators gliding up silently. Men and women in tailored suits, carrying leather bags that cost more than his rent. A chandelier in the lobby that probably had its own insurance policy. He was wearing his cleanest shirt, pressed with the boiling water method again. It was decent, but in here, decent felt like showing up to a black tie event in pajamas. The security guard at the front desk, Tyler Davis, mid-50s, solid build, calm face, checked his name on a list. Mitchell Brooks? That's me. Tyler looked at him for a second. Not suspicion, something else. Curiosity. Maybe respect. 42nd floor. They're expecting you. Mitch stepped into the elevator, alone. The doors closed, floor numbers climbing. 12, 18, 25, 33. Through the glass, the city shrank beneath him. Somewhere down there, in the grid of cracked streets and faded signs, was his apartment, his folding table, his cracked laptop, his grandmother's note on the wall. From up here, none of it was visible. The elevator chimed. 42. The doors opened to a private executive suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, the entire city laid out like a map. Silence, the expensive kind, the kind you only hear when walls are thick and the carpet costs more per square foot than most people's groceries. A woman stood by the window, waiting. Silver hair, simple black dress, quiet authority in every inch of her posture. She turned around. Mitchell Brooks? Yes, ma'am. I'm Catherine Wilson. Thank you for coming. She extended her hand. He shook it. And just like that, the man who couldn't get past the lobby 3 days ago was standing on the top floor. Catherine didn't sit behind her desk. She walked to a pair of armchairs by the window and gestured for him to sit. No power play, no distance, just two people, face to face. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water's fine, thank you. She poured it herself, not an assistant, the CEO of a $4 billion company pouring water for a 24-year-old barista from the South Side. She sat down, took a breath. I need to tell you what happened that day, from my side. Mitch nodded. Chloe's nanny, Mrs. Adler, had a stroke on her way to the school. She collapsed 2 blocks away. By the time the ambulance reached her, school had already let out. Chloe waited. The teachers locked up. Nobody realized she was still there. Catherine's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. My assistant tried calling Mrs. Adler at 3:15. No answer. We called the school at 3:20. Closed. I left the office at 3:25 and drove everywhere. The school, Mrs. Adler's apartment, the park near our house. Nothing. I called the police at 3:40. She paused. For 2 hours and 40 minutes, I didn't know where my daughter was. I didn't know if she was alive. Silence. 42 floors of glass and money, and none of it could find a 6-year-old girl in the rain. The precinct called at 5:50 p.m. A young man had brought her in. She was safe. She had a bracelet made of a shoelace on her wrist, and she wouldn't stop talking about someone named Mitch. She looked at him. I watched the precinct footage. You carried her in on your back. I asked for the full details of how you found her. She leaned forward. She told me she asked 3 people for help before you. 3 adults. They all said no. One of them looked at her and crossed the street. Mitch remembered Chloe's voice. I asked a lady for help. She looked at me and walked away. Then you showed up. You sat on the far end of the bench so she wouldn't be scared. You bought her hot chocolate with your last $4.50, made her a bracelet, Carried her 20 minutes in the rain. Catherine's voice cracked, just barely. And there was a woman in a car, watching you the entire time, not helping, just watching, like you were the problem. Mitch didn't respond. You knew what she was thinking, didn't you? Yes, ma'am. And you stayed anyway. She was 6, and she was alone. That's all that mattered. Catherine stared at him for a long moment. What do you do, Mitchell? I'm a barista, but I do graphic design, self-taught. That's what the interview was for. What interview? Whitmore Creative, 3 days ago, the 3 p.m. slot. Catherine blinked. Whitmore Creative is on the 6th floor of this building? It's one of our subsidiaries. Yes, ma'am. You had an interview in my building, and you missed it because you were helping my daughter. I didn't know she was your daughter. I know, that's the point. She stood, walked to the window. May I see your work? Mitch handed her his phone. Cracked screen, taped corner. She scrolled slowly. Her expression shifted. Not sympathy, recognition. Who trained you? YouTube, library books, a lot of trial and error. This is exceptional, Mitchell. Firms charge 6 figures for this level of thinking. She handed the phone back. I'd like to offer you a position, not at Whitmore Creative. Here, Monarch Holdings, in-house creative division, paid internship, full resources, direct mentorship. Mitch opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I need to be clear. I'm not offering this because you helped Chloe. I'm offering it because your work deserves a real platform. Chloe is the reason I found you. Your portfolio is the reason I'm asking. Chloe is the reason I found you. Your portfolio is the reason I'm asking. Not charity, not guilt. A chance. Earned. When do I start? Catherine smiled. Not a CEO smile, a real one. The door behind her opened. Mitch! Chloe burst through like a hurricane in a yellow dress. She ran across the office and crashed into him, arms around his waist, face in his shirt. I told my mom everything. The hot chocolate and the bracelet and how you carried me and... Okay, breathe, Chloe. She pulled back, grinning. On her wrist, the shoelace and paperclip bracelet. Still there, frayed, dirty, perfect. See? She held it up. I told you it was magic. Mitch looked at the bracelet, looked at Catherine, and the expression on her face wasn't a CEO's, it was a mother's. He laughed, full and real, the first one in longer than he could remember. Footsteps in the hallway. A man appeared in the doorway, late 40s, sharp suit, cold eyes. Derek Stanton, VP of Operations. He looked at Mitch, at Chloe on his arm, at Catherine. Catherine, a word? Not now, Derek. Derek's eyes stayed on Mitch. Who's our guest? Mitchell Brooks. He'll be joining the creative division. Ah. A pause, just long enough to carry weight. The young man who found Chloe. And now he gets a desk. That's quite a story. He smiled, the kind of smile that has teeth but no warmth. Welcome aboard, Mitchell. He turned and walked away, shoes clicking on marble, sharp, measured, deliberate. Mitch watched him go. Something cold settled in his stomach. No name for it yet, but it was there. 3 weeks in, and Mitch was breathing for the first time in years. Not thriving yet, breathing. There's a difference. Thriving is when the ground feels solid. Breathing is when you stop waiting for it to collapse. He showed up early, stayed late. Not to impress anyone, because the work mattered to him. His designs weren't polished in the way the Ivy League kids' work was polished. They were raw, distinctive. The kind of visual language that comes from learning alone in a room at 2 a.m. with a cracked laptop and no safety net. People noticed. The creative director pulled him aside after his first presentation. "Where did you study?" "Mitch, the public library on 4th and Vine." She stared at him, then laughed. "Keep going." He paid rent on time, first time in 5 months. Mr. Ellsworth didn't knock on Friday. That silence felt like a standing ovation. He bought Gwen a heating pad, the good kind, with 3 settings. She pretended to be annoyed. "Boy, I told you to save your money." But she used it every night. He knew because he could hear it clicking through the wall. On weekends, he visited the Wilson house. Catherine invited him for Saturday lunches. Chloe would be waiting at the door, sketchbook in hand. "Mitch, teach me shading." "All right, but you gotta teach me something too." "Okay. Did you know a T-Rex's arms were too short to clap?" "I did not know that." They'd draw for hours. He taught her about contrast and negative space. She taught him every dinosaur fact a 6-year-old could memorize. The bracelet never left her wrist. Things were good, quiet, almost normal. Then, one afternoon in the break room, Derek Stanton appeared. He poured himself a coffee, casual, unhurried, like a man who owned the room and wanted you to know it. "Mitchell, settling in?" "Yes, sir." "Good, good." He sipped. Then, without looking up, "You know, most people get hired through the front door, applications, interviews, the usual process." A pause. "But I guess not everyone needs one." He smiled, patted Mitch on the shoulder, walked out. Mitch stood there. The coffee machine hummed. His jaw was tight. His hands were still. He told no one. Derek Stanton didn't become VP of Operations by being loud. He became VP by being patient, by watching, by knowing exactly where to place a word so it would grow roots in someone's mind before they even realized it was planted. He'd spent 9 years positioning himself as Catherine Wilson's successor. Every late night, every board dinner, every strategic alliance, calculated, quiet, inevitable. Then, Mitchell Brooks showed up. Not through the system, not through HR, not through any process Derek could control. He just appeared. A 24-year-old kid from the South Side who made a bracelet out of a shoelace and somehow ended up on the 42nd floor with a desk and the CEO's personal attention. That couldn't stand. Not because of Mitch's talent. Derek didn't care about talent. He cared about access. And Mitch had something Derek had spent 9 years trying to earn. Catherine Wilson's trust. Not professional trust, personal trust. The kind that comes from holding someone's child in the rain. So Derek moved, the way he always moved. Slowly, cleanly, with deniability built into every step. First, the seeds. Lunches with board members. Casual, friendly, nothing on the record. Catherine's been different lately, distracted. I think the situation with Chloe shook her more than she lets on. She's making decisions based on emotion. The Brooks kid? Nice story, sure. But are we running a company or a charity? I'm not saying anything about him personally. I'm just saying there's a process. And when you skip the process for one person, what message does that send? He never mentioned race. He never had to. In a boardroom full of people who looked like Derek, the subtext wrote itself. An outsider, unqualified, given special treatment, skipped the line. Then, the trap. The Belfort Hotel's rebranding. A $2.2 million contract, one of Monarch Holdings' flagship projects. The design files lived on a restricted server, access limited to senior creative staff and above. Mitch didn't have access. He'd never even opened the Belfort folder. On a Tuesday night at 11:38 p.m., someone logged into the server using admin-level credentials from Derek's office terminal. They copied the Belfort master file, logos, brand guidelines, mock-ups, everything, and transferred it into Mitch's personal folder. Then, 4 minutes later, someone used a cloned version of Mitch's badge to enter the building. The security log registered Mitchell Brooks, 11:42 p.m., main entrance. Mitch was asleep in his apartment, phone charging, lights off since 10 o'clock. Wednesday morning, emergency board meeting. Derek presented the evidence, server logs, timestamps, badge records, the Belfort file sitting in Mitch's personal folder, modified with his credentials. I want to be clear, this isn't personal. I have a great deal of respect for what Mitchell did for Chloe, but we have a responsibility to protect our client's intellectual property. The evidence speaks for itself. Mitch was called in. 12 faces around a mahogany table, 11 of them white. He was the only black person in the room. Mitchell, can you explain why the Belfort master file is in your personal folder? What? I've never accessed the Belfort project. I don't even have clearance for that server. The logs show your credentials were used to transfer the file at 11:38 p.m. on Tuesday. That's impossible. I was home. I was asleep. Your badge was scanned at the main entrance at 11:42 p.m. I wasn't here. I'm telling you, I was not in this building. Derek leaned back in his chair. Mitchell, no one is attacking your character. But we have protocols. Digital evidence doesn't lie. And nobody, regardless of how they came to this company, is above accountability. Regardless of how they came to this company. The room heard it. Mitch heard it. The sentence that says everything without saying anything. The kind of sentence that's designed to be repeated later, in hallways, in emails, in whispered conversations, because it sounds reasonable, professional, fair. Catherine was there. She sat at the head of the table, silent, her face unreadable. Board members looked at her. She didn't defend him. She didn't speak. Given the severity of this matter, we recommend immediate suspension pending a full investigation. Mitch looked at Catherine. She didn't look back. All in favor? Hands went up. Not all of them, but enough. His badge was deactivated, his computer locked. A security escort was called. Tyler Davis walked him to the elevator. Not behind him, beside him. They rode down in silence. 42 floors, the numbers falling the way they'd climbed just weeks ago. In the lobby, Tyler spoke, low, almost a whisper. This doesn't feel right. It never does. They walked to the front door, the same marble, the same glass. But everything felt different now, like the building had swallowed something and was spitting it back out. Mitch stepped outside. Same sidewalk, same street. The bus shelter where he'd found Chloe was 6 blocks away. He stood there for a minute. Then he walked. Past the coffee shops with $8 lattes. Past the ad panels. Past the glass turning back to brick, the suits turning back to hoodies, the world shrinking back to the size it had always been. He called Gwen from a payphone. His cell was locked in his desk drawer upstairs. Miss Gwen. Baby, what's wrong? I think I just lost everything. Again. Silence. Then, without hesitation, did you do what they said? No, ma'am. Then you haven't lost everything. You still got the truth. And the truth is patient, baby. It waits. That night, Mitch sat in his apartment, the folding table, the cracked laptop, the mood board on the wall that had started to feel like possibility, now felt like a joke. He looked at his grandmother's note. Be the man the world doesn't expect you to be. He stared at it for a long time. He wondered if the world would ever stop expecting the worst. 2 days later, Mitch was back at the coffee shop, apron on, making lattes, like the last 3 weeks had been a dream. Thursday afternoon, slow shift. The bell above the door jingled. Tyler Davis walked in, out of uniform, jeans. He sat at the counter. Coffee, black. Mitch poured it. You didn't come here for coffee. No, I didn't. Tyler stared into the mug. I pulled the security footage from Tuesday night. Your badge was scanned at 11:42 p.m. That's what the log says. But I was on shift, Mitchell, sitting at that desk from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You never walked through that door. Mitch stopped wiping the counter. Someone cloned your badge, or used a master override. The person who walked in that night wasn't you. I watched every camera on every floor. The build was wrong. The walk was wrong. Everything was wrong. Why are you telling me this? If they find out, I know what happens. Then why? Tyler set the mug down, looked at Mitch the way a man looks at something he's decided to protect. I got a son, 22. Good kid. Last year, he got accused of stealing from a register at his job. Camera footage didn't show him taking anything, but they said the angle was wrong. Fired. No investigation, no appeal, just gone. His jaw was tight. Nobody spoke up for him. Not one person. I watched it happen and couldn't do a thing because I didn't have the proof. He looked at Mitch. I have the proof now. And I watched you on the cameras the day you brought that little girl in. The way you sat on the far end of the bench. The way you carried her. People who do that don't steal. Mitch was quiet for a long time. Then, thank you, Tyler. Don't thank me yet. We need more than camera footage. They did. And that's where Hannah Caldwell came in. Friday night, 9 p.m., 3 floors below Catherine's office. Hannah sat at her desk, doing something that could end her career. She'd had doubts since the board meeting. The evidence was too clean, too perfectly arranged, like a gift box with a bow. The kind that makes you wonder who wrapped it. She pulled the full server logs, not the summary Derek had presented, the raw back-end metadata. The file transfer at 11:38 p.m. used admin-level credentials. Mitch's account had never been granted admin access. He couldn't have generated those credentials if he'd tried. She traced the session origin. Terminal ID DS-EXEC-042. Derek Stanton's office. His terminal. His login. 4 minutes before the badge entry. Hannah sat back, monitor light on her face. She thought about Derek, her direct superior. The man who controlled her reviews, her bonus, her entire trajectory. If she was wrong, this was career-ending. If she was right, it might still cost her everything. She thought about it for one night. Saturday morning, she called Mitch. Mr. Brooks, it's Hannah Caldwell. I found something. I can't promise anything, but I'm not going to let this disappear. Meanwhile, Catherine Wilson's office, late Friday night. She picked up the phone. I want every access log from the last 30 days, every login, every override, every terminal ID, on my desk by Monday morning. She hung up, stared at the skyline. Catherine Wilson didn't build a $4 billion company by reacting. She built it by waiting, until every card was face up on the table. Her silence wasn't abandonment. It was the sound of someone loading every chamber before pulling the trigger. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Emergency board meeting. Full attendance. No agenda distributed in advance. Derek Stanton arrived early, took his usual seat, adjusted his cufflinks, opened his leather folder. He looked like a man who'd already won, just waiting for the paperwork to confirm it. Board members filtered in, 12 seats filled, low murmurs. Catherine Wilson entered last. She closed the door behind her, didn't sit, stood at the head of the table with a single black folder in her hand. No coffee, no small talk. The room went quiet. Thank you for coming on short notice. I'll be brief. She opened the folder. 5 weeks ago, I brought a young man into this company. His name is Mitchell Brooks. He wasn't recruited. He didn't network. He didn't come through any pipeline or program. He came to my attention because I watched security footage of him sitting in the rain with my 6-year-old daughter. A daughter who had been lost for nearly 3 hours, who had asked 3 strangers for help and been turned away by every one of them. She paused. Let it land. He bought her hot chocolate with his last $4.50. He made her a bracelet out of a shoelace. He carried her on his back for 20 minutes to a police precinct, while a woman sat in a parked car across the street, watching him like he was a criminal, because a black man helping a white child apparently requires surveillance. Derek shifted in his seat, almost imperceptibly. He did all of this knowing he was missing the only job interview he'd received in 8 months. An interview at Whitmore Creative, on the 6th floor of this building, my building. He didn't know that. He didn't know Chloe was my daughter. He didn't know any of it. He just saw a child who needed help. And he stayed. Catherine looked around the table. That is the man you suspended. She pulled a second folder from beneath the first, thicker. Now let me show you why that suspension was exactly what someone in this room wanted. Derek's smile flickered, just for a second. Catherine laid out the server logs, page by page, methodical, the way a surgeon places instruments before cutting. The Belfort file was transferred to Mitchell's personal folder on Tuesday at 11:38 p.m., using admin-level credentials. Mitchell Brooks has never held admin access. His account is incapable of generating those credentials. This is confirmed by our IT department. She turned a page. The admin session that executed the transfer originated from terminal DS-EXEC-042. She looked up. That terminal is in Derek Stanton's office. The room didn't move, didn't breathe. Derek leaned forward. Catherine, terminal IDs can be spoofed. Anyone could have. I'm not finished. She pulled out a printout. Security camera stills. Time-stamped. At 11:42 p.m., a badge registered to Mitchell Brooks was scanned at the main entrance. Our head of security, Tyler Davis, was on shift that night. He confirms, under written statement, that Mitchell Brooks did not enter the building. The individual captured on camera does not match Mitchell's build, height, or gait. She placed the images on the table, side by side. The figure in the footage, and a photo of Mitch for comparison. It wasn't even close. Mr. Davis further identified the individual's movement pattern as consistent with someone who had prior knowledge of our camera blind spots. A visitor or outsider would not have that knowledge. Derek's face had gone pale. His fingers pressed flat against the table. Catherine pulled out one final document, printed emails. These were recovered by our IT department from a backup server. An email thread between Derek Stanton and his executive assistant, sent the week before the incident. She read aloud, not the full text, just enough. Make sure the trail is clean. Use the secondary login. The folder needs to be in his name by end of night. She set the paper down. It wasn't clean enough. The silence in that room was absolute. The kind of silence that has weight, that presses against your chest. Derek stood up. This is circumstantial. He could have shared his credentials. He could have, sit down, Derek. He didn't sit, but he stopped talking. Catherine looked at him, not with anger, with something worse. Clarity. You manufactured evidence against a 24-year-old man who had nothing. A man who gave up his only opportunity to help a child he'd never met. You did it because his presence in this building threatened your position. Not with power, not with politics, with something you don't have. Character. She paused. And that terrified you. The room was still. Then Catherine said it. 10 words. Quiet, final. Kindness under pressure is the only resume I trust. She turned to the board. Derek Stanton's employment is terminated effective immediately. I'll take questions after he's left the building. Derek looked around the table. 12 faces, not one met his eyes. He picked up his leather folder, straightened his tie, a reflex, muscle memory, the body performing control while everything crumbled. Tyler Davis was waiting by the door. Same uniform, same calm expression. He walked Derek to the elevator, down 42 floors, through the lobby, past the marble, past the glass, past the front desk where, 3 weeks ago, he'd watched Mitch walk the same route in the other direction. Same building, same floor, same door. Different man walking through it. That evening, Mitch's apartment. He was eating instant noodles at the folding table when his phone rang. Mitchell, it's Catherine Wilson. Mrs. Wilson. I owe you an apology. Not for the investigation. That had to run its course, with evidence, not emotion. But for the silence. I should have told you I was fighting for you. You believed me? I never stopped. I just needed the proof to match what I already knew. Pause. Long enough to hold everything that didn't need to be said. I'd like to offer you a new position. Not the internship. Junior Creative Director. The board approved it. Unanimously, including the members who voted to suspend you. Mitch looked at the wall. His grandmother's note. Be the man the world doesn't expect you to be. Monday works. Monday morning. Clean shirt, steady stride, Monarch Tower. Tyler Davis stood up behind the desk, smiled. Welcome back, Mr. Brooks. Hannah Caldwell met him at the elevator. No words, just a nod. She pressed 42. The doors opened, the creative floor. People at their desks looked up, one by one, and stood. Not applause, not a parade, just people standing. A quiet acknowledgement that something wrong had been made right. And there, sitting in his new office chair with her legs swinging, too short to reach the floor, was Chloe, holding a hand-drawn card in yellow marker. My friend Mitch is back. She jumped off the chair and ran to him. Don't be sad anymore, okay? You're home. He picked her up, held her, looked at the card over her shoulder. Yellow marker. Crooked letters. A little drawing of 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands in the rain. And for the first time in this story, Mitchell Brooks cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears rolling down his face while a 6-year-old girl held on and whispered, It's okay, Mitch. It's okay. On her wrist, the bracelet. Frayed, faded. Still there. 6 months later, Mitch's name was on a door. Not a corner office, a glass-walled studio on the 42nd floor with a drafting table, 2 monitors, and a team of 4 designers who called him boss, even though he told them not to. The Belfort Hotel's rebrand, the same project he'd been accused of stealing, launched under his direction. It won a regional design award. The trade publication that covered it wrote, a visual identity that feels both elevated and human, rare in corporate branding. He read that sentence 3 times. Then he pinned it to his mood board, next to his grandmother's note. He moved apartments. Not far, same neighborhood, 2 blocks over. A 1-bedroom with a working elevator and windows that actually opened. He kept the folding table. Some things you don't replace because they remind you where you started. Mr. Ellsworth ran into him on the street. I see you're doing all right, Mitchell. Mitch shook his hand. Thank you for the extra time, Mr. Ellsworth. It mattered more than you know. Every Sunday morning, he knocked on apartment 2C Gwen's door. Morning, Miss Gwen. Morning, baby. He'd fix whatever needed fixing. She'd make tea, They'd sit and not talk about anything important, which was the most important thing of all. He started a Saturday design workshop at the community center. Free, no applications, just show up with ideas and something to draw with. 2 kids from the neighborhood came the first week. By month 3, 11. Catherine established the Brooks Wilson Creative Access Fund, named jointly, not Wilson Brooks, Brooks Wilson, she insisted. At the launch event, a rooftop reception at Monarch Tower, Catherine introduced him to 300 people. Mitch stepped to the microphone. No notes, no polish. I didn't help Chloe because I expected anything. I helped her because she needed it. And I knew how it looked. A guy like me with a girl like her on a sidewalk in this country. I knew. But I decided a long time ago that I'd rather be judged for doing the right thing than be safe for doing nothing. He paused. I'm not special for that. I just want to help make it normal. Silence. Then, applause. After the event, Chloe found him by the elevator, yellow dress, sketchbook under her arm, and on her wrist, the bracelet, frayed almost to breaking, held together by nothing but stubbornness and love. Mitch, I can draw shading now. Want to see? Always. He looked at the bracelet. Chloe, I can make you a real one now. Gold, silver, whatever you want. She looked at him like he'd said something ridiculous. I don't want a real one. I want this one. He laughed. She laughed. The elevator doors opened behind them, and the city glittered 42 floors below, wide and bright and full of people who might never hear this story. But it happened. Every word of it. Derek Stanton was never charged, but he never held a senior position again. He moved to a smaller firm in another state. Nobody at Monarch Holdings mentions his name. Tyler Davis was promoted to head of building security. He and Mitch grabbed lunch every Thursday. Tyler's son got a new job at a company that actually investigated before they fired. Mitch designed their logo. Hannah Caldwell became Monarch Holdings' chief people officer. Her first act, a complete overhaul of the whistleblower protection policy. The board approved it unanimously. Gwen Moore attended the foundation launch in a new dress Mitch bought her. She sat in the front row. She told every single person at her table, "That's my neighbor. I always knew." Chloe Wilson turns 7. She wants to be a graphic designer when she grows up. Her favorite artist? Mitchell Brooks. Her most prized possession? A bracelet made of a shoelace and a paperclip, given to her by a stranger in the rain who didn't stay a stranger for long.
I need you to hear this. Do the right thing even when it costs you. That's it. That's the whole lesson. Don't calculate. Don't think what they get out of this. Just do it. Because the moment you start weighing kindness against convenience, you'd already lost something more important than any job interview. And here's the thing people don't tell you. Good decisions don't always look good right away. Sometimes they look like a mistake. Sometimes you walk home in the rain and thinking, I just ruined my life. But you didn't. You just planted something you can't see yet. And it's grows on its own schedule, not yours. So stop asking, is this worth it? Before you have someone. That question is a trap. Because if the answer has to be yes before you move, you will never move. Just happen. Just show up. Just be the person who stops when everybody else keeps walking. Like, share and subscribe. Real stories, real justice every week. And remember, character isn't what you do when it's easy. It's what you do when it costs you everything.